Hello, welcome to Mr. Paul's Pantry. I'm Mr. Paul, and if you're new here, a very, very warm welcome. If you're a returning visitor, accept my apologies for being missing for the past 4 weeks. I'm sorry about that. I'm feeling a lot better now, and thanks for all your good wishes. And let's hope I'm back to rights, making a video once a week if I can manage it. Now, the recipe this week is for a lemon meringue pie. Now, lemon meringue pie has a pastry base. Every time I make pastry, I get a lot of people saying, look, we know how to make pastry, don't keep putting that on every video. So as I'm feeling not 100% today, I'm not going to show you how to make the pastry. You know how to put pastry together, but if you want to use my recipes, I've got 3 or 4 different pastries, and I'll put a link down below under the video to those recipes. They're all on the same link. When you get to that page, they'll be listed down. And they're all for making, I think they're all for making 300 grams of pastry. Now, for each recipe, you may not need 300 grams. You may need to weigh some out. Like for this recipe we're going to do, I only use half that recipe, but you can freeze the rest of the pastry and use it up to 6 months later. Alright, now later on in the video, I have got a very, very top tip for you for making, for blind baking small pastry cases for tarts and tartlets without the need to put anything in to weight them down, like you normally have to put baking beans and things like that inside. Well, my little tip later on in the video for making these mini tartlets, you don't have to do that. I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so let's get on with the lemon meringue pie. Right, here we have the ingredients for this beautiful, delicious lemon meringue tart or pie, whichever you call it. I think it's classed as a pie because it has a top on it, but technically I always think it has to have a pastry top to call it a pie, but never mind. It's internationally known as a lemon meringue pie. And the ingredients for the filling are, first of all, the zest and juice of 1 lemon. We need 2 eggs. They're going to be for the interior, that's and the topping. So we separate the eggs, yolk and white. We have 200 grams of sugar. I've separated them because half is for the filling and half is for the meringue on the top. And 25 grams of cornflour. You may know it as cornstarch. And finally, this will be boiling water, just 125 mils. That's all you need for the filling and the meringue on top. Okay, so let's get on with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll the pastry to fit my 18 centimetre dish. Now I'm using a foil one, a disposable one, only for the simple reason it's what we used in the shop all the time. We sold it with the product. And I have a shed full of them, so I'm going to use it. But it's 18 centimetres across, okay? So off we go. Now, when you're rolling pastry, if you haven't rolled pastry before, roll it backwards and forwards to and from you, and then give it a 90-degree turn and do the same thing, like that. Okay? Rather than trying to do it like this. It's very awkward doing it like that. So do it backwards and forwards away from you and towards you. And then I'll just put a little bit more flour under there. Then give it a half a turn like that. And off we go. And again. And just keep going until it's big enough to come up the sides of that. It's not quite there yet, but it's getting there. Be very gentle, don't rush it. There's no rush at all. Just keep your mind on what you're doing. Turn it gently, slide it on the flour. And again. Let me see how we're doing. There we are. That's perfect. So what we need to do now is we need to roll it up on the pin gently and then roll it back over the tart case like this. If you've got long nails, fancy nails, take a little bit of pastry off the side and roll it into a little ball and leave it there, and I'll show you what to do with that in a minute. But normally you would just ease this down into the tin. Don't push it and stretch it, just ease it down into the corner of the tin gently, lifting the sides up, so like that. If you've got long nails, use this and push that into the corner as you go round. As you're easing it down, keep pushing that in, then you won't dig holes in your pastry. I think that's doing fine now. And when we've got right the way round, we're going to trim that off. It's so simple. Don't forget any waste, like the piece you've measured off. I've only used about half of what we made. Here's the other half, look, there. Pop them together, wrap them in cling film and pop it in the freezer. You can use it anytime up to 6 months later. So there's the case. Now we need to bake that blind. That's because if we don't, it'll all start to get air bubbles underneath and you'll have a difficult job with it. So the first thing we need to do with it all, the first thing is what we call dock it. And we press the fork through the pastry all over the base and in the corner. This prevents any air getting trapped underneath when it's baking. If you don't let release that air, it'll come up in a bubble like that. Now you can either use a piece of foil and press it down inside it to the corners, or if you haven't got foil, you can use a little bit of grease-proof paper. And what you need to do with this to make this work is scrunch it all up like this, scrunch it all up, then open it out, and you will find once you've done that with it will pretty much fit into the shape you want. It won't be a straight piece. Can you see that? So what we're going to do is we're going to put our baking beans in there. Now myself, I don't buy ceramic beans. I buy a cheap bag of these white beans, dried beans, and I just keep them for baking. These have been used many times. I couldn't eat them now, of course. They've been baked and put back in there and baked and put back in there. And all it's to do is to stop the pastry rising up when you're baking it. It's the weight of these that does it. You can buy ceramic baking beans, but I don't think it's an expense I would want to go to. So we do that. Now that's going to go in a preheated oven at 180 degrees for about 20 minutes. Okay? 180 for 20 minutes. And that's not a fan oven. I've told you before in recipes, I now do not use a fan oven. Okay? I never have done for cakes and pastries. I only use the ordinary oven. So if you have a fan oven, you will need to adjust your temperature because it runs hotter than mine. Okay, so I'm going to get that in the oven and then I will back shortly and I'll show you what we do with it. So here we are. It's at 15 minutes in the oven. And I'm going to take out the beans now. Put them in there. And then this is going, it's not cooked in the middle yet, you see. So this is going to go back in now for about another 10 or 12 minutes. Right, here we are. That's out of the oven. That's been in 25 minutes now. 25 minutes. Whoops. 25 minutes. And what I'm going to do now is, whilst it's still hot, I've beaten up an egg here and I'm going to coat all the inside of this with the egg wash. This is going to seal the pastry so that the filling doesn't soak into it and make it soggy, because we want a nice crispy base. So we need to go all round everywhere. Now I know this egg looks very bright yellow. It's one of my neighbour's eggs. She has her own chickens and they really are brilliant colours. So once you've gone all round here with this, now you need to pop this back in the oven at the same temperature, 180, for about another 7, 8, probably 10 minutes. I'm going to put mine in for another 8 minutes. Okay, so there we are. So we're over at the stove now. I've got a nice saucepan, and I'm going to blend in there first of all the 100 grams of sugar with the 2 egg yolks. One's broken in there, so I'll just scrape it out. Also going in there is the lemon zest, together with the juice of the large lemon. Now it's important you use a fresh lemon for this, because you need the zest and the juice, and I've tried it with bottled lemon juice and it doesn't seem to work properly. So we need to whisk that together. And straight into the 125 mils of boiling water. Now we can turn the heat up to medium now. And just get that adjusted to medium. And we need to bring that gently to the boil. But keep stirring all the time, because we don't want any egg to settle to the bottom, or we'll have scrambled eggs, as I said before. So bring it gently to the boil. It'll only take a couple of minutes because we've put the boiling water in already. Sounds like I've got a wobbly pan on this stove. I don't know why. Never wobbled before. Unfortunately, the pans are getting quite old. I think this pan is about 35 years old. Now, while that's coming gently to the boil, I'll just quickly tell you, because I'm supposed to keep stirring that. Here's the cornflour, or the cornstarch, and I've just put a little drop of water in it just to make it mobile. It's like a thick cream, whipping cream. It's almost on the boil now. We're going to pop the cornflour in there, and that will thicken it right up. It's just coming to the boil now, so in we go, and keep stirring it. Don't let it settle. We don't want any lumps appearing anywhere. And just keep gently stirring that as if you were making custard until it thickens right up. Now I'm sure now you can see there, it's thickened right up. Can you see that? I can't see the camera, so I don't know what you're looking at. Can you see it? Yes, I'm sure you can. It's thickened right up. Now just give it a couple of seconds to come back to the boil. Now remember, this is not lemon curd. A lot of modern people make it with lemon curd, and it is not correct. This has no butter in it, nothing like that, just what you've seen me put in. So we're going to take it off the stove now and go over and put it into the pie case. Now you can see the case now, it's still very, very warm. I think you can see that. It's a beautiful colour, nice and crispy all round, underneath, everywhere. And if you do want to cook this ahead of time, one little tip, when you come to put the filling into it, you must warm the pastry. Don't pop it into cold pastry. So right, the fillings, while this filling's hot and that's hot, it's going to go straight in. And I can hear you saying, what, all of it? And yes, I mean all of it. Just make sure I get every last bit out because it's beautiful and lemony, very tangy. There we are. Just spread that around now to the edges. Just let me put the pan down. That's it. Now go ahead and I'll make the meringue and I'll be back shortly. Okay, now we come to the last part, the meringue. So we've got our eggs here. Now they really should be at room temperature all the time. Everything we've used has been at room temperature except the boiling water. These are the egg whites going in. And I'm going to put about 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. You can, if you haven't got cream of tartar, you can add a few drops of lemon juice. It works just the same. It makes them beat up quicker and stiffer. So off we go with this. Be a bit noisy for the moment. A little tip here, don't start it off, if whether using this kind of a mixer or a stand mixer, don't turn it on full speed. It needs to be just a gentle speed to start with. Another little tip, which I suppose you've already noticed, to stop my bowl sliding around on here, I'm standing it on a tea towel. It doesn't have to be damp or anything like that, just a tea towel. And we whisk this until it looks like snow. Not very stiff, but not runny. Now we've got to this stage, we can start adding the sugar, a little at a time. You'll see as we're adding the sugar, it starts to become glossy, very, very glossy. And once all the sugar is incorporated, in a few seconds I'll put that last drop in, then we go on to high speed. Just turn it off a second so I can speak. When we get to this stage, we need to go on to high speed and get it as stiff as we possibly can. Now, this could take up to 8 or 10 minutes, depending on two things: the temperature of your eggs or your atmosphere in your kitchen, and how old the eggs were. Okay? So, we'll just see how long it takes. Now, as you can see, those are pretty stiff. There we are. And if we turn the ball upside down, we've no fear of them falling out. Okay? Here we have the tart. And we'll start and put on the meringue. Now, when you put the meringue on here, it's very, very important we take it right to the edges. I don't think I mentioned that before, but it also stops any leakage, because when it goes back in the oven, you do tend to get leakages coming round the edge, and that will prevent that. We'll get all that on there. I know it seems a lot, but it is really scrumptious. And then we're just going to make it look like that. I do know some people pipe it all nice and neat. I don't think it looks as exciting as just free form like this, because all those little knobbles and peaks will all brown in the oven, and I think it looks very, very nice. Okay, and I'm going to pop that back in the oven now, and it will be in there for about 20 minutes. Just keep an eye on it so it doesn't get too dark. I'll show you when it's ready. Well, this is the moment of truth. We're going to have a look and see what's happened inside. See, and there we have it. Right, now earlier in the video I did tell you I had a top tip for making little mini tartlets cases when you have to blind bake them without the need for weighting them down. So here's my little top tip for you. If you want to make small mini mini lemon meringue pies, you can use something like this. Make your little pie cases in here, like tart cases, like jam tarts, etc. The only thing is, you still have to blind bake them. And that means you have to put some paper in there and use something like these, the beans I used before, or in a small instance like this, you could use rice. But I'm going to show you how to make them without weighting anything down. You can just make the cases without, you still have to blind bake them, but you don't have to fiddle about putting bits of paper and weighting them down. Okay? I'll show you how to do that. So, roll out the pastry, nice and thin as you can see, as thin as you can get it to handle, like that. And we're going to use a cookie cutter or biscuit cutter, whatever you want to call it. I'm using a fluted one, but what we have to do is when we cut one of these out like this, we have to dock it all over with a fork or something like that. In the factory, in the bakery, we always used one of these, and we just ran it backwards and forwards over large pieces of pastry. But you could just do this, okay? So we're going to cut some out like this. And then we're going to take our tin, and instead of conventional method of putting it in here, we're going to turn the tin over. And we're actually going to, I'll just move those out of the way first. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to lay them on top of the tin like that and just gently push the side down. On top of the tin like that, and gently push the side down. And keep doing that until you've filled your tin. I hope you can see that okay. So remember, instead of putting them the usual way inside the baking tin, we're putting them on the bottom, underneath. And this way, it's a little secret that I'm letting you have, lots of little things you learn in the bakery over the years. And this way we don't have to, when we're blind baking something like this, we don't have to weight it down with beans or rice or whatever you want to use. So I'll carry on and fill that up. So now we've got the tin full. Another little secret. We're going to put this in the fridge for about half an hour. Okay? You can put it in the freezer if you want for about 10-15 minutes, but I'm putting in for half an hour in my fridge. Just make sure the fluted edges are pressed to the tin. There we go. And that way they'll go straight into the oven then at 170 for about 15 minutes. Okay? I'll get to the fridge and I'll see you later. In. There we go. Now, as you can see, I think you can see that, I'll try and show you it a bit closer. There's the docking underneath. It's made a nice little tart. And what we're going to do now is we're going to egg wash the inside just like we did the big one. Just going to run the egg wash around the inside of the tart cases. And as I said to you before, when I made the large case, this is only to stop the filling making the pastry go soggy. Now these are going to go back in the oven now for just approximately 5 to 6 minutes. That's all. And I'm going to turn the tin back up the right way now, pop them in there just to stop them sliding around. Oops. And I'll pop those back in for 5 or 6 minutes. So, I've lifted them out of the oven, I've filled them with the lemon filling, and now I'm going to just pop on the meringue. Now these are going back in the oven now for about another 10 minutes. And that's how you turn your lemon meringue pies into mini ones. Well, that's all we have time for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and it's nice to be back with you all again. If you want to see the recipe, so the ingredients, they're listed underneath the video and also on my website. All the links are underneath if you have a look. If you can't find it, I mean, a lot of people call it the description box underneath. Strangely enough, it doesn't mention description box anywhere. It doesn't have the word description anywhere. So it says show more. If you click on that, it'll open up and it'll show you my recipe and all the links to the various things, okay? So, Mr. Paul saying bye for now, and I'll see you next time. Bye!